I would just say that the genre is really compelling because you get to bring to bear sound and image and everything to conduct a psychological experiment on people in a darkened room. You're watching Dane's character be processed as a patient in this sanatorium. You're watching his journey, but really, you are the patient, right? I mean, that's what I love about this genre, you know. And we get to slip into a dream logic. It doesn't need to be the same logic of a waking state, if that makes sense.
I got a call saying that Gore wanted to meet with me, and I flew out to LA, and we sat down together, and he started talking to me about how he wanted to make this movie that was inspired by the great psychological thrillers of the 70s, and that sounded really ambitious and exciting to me. And he showed me some images and kind of set the scene, told me what it was about, and I went home with the script, and it seemed like, you know, I knew the part was going to be challenging. I don't think there's many movies where, you know, the characters in every single scene, in one scene he's walking down the hallway and the next scene he's turning a corner, and I liked the challenge of kind of that responsibility. And also, you know, I liked how ambitious Gore was being, and I knew from his previous work that he had a chance of pulling it off, so I was on board.
You know, we're sort of playing with this idea of trying to put sickness into the narrative. You know, that the idea that maybe something is inevitable, like a black spot on your X-ray, or you know, it's not going away, and so every moment becomes has to have a kind of intention and a sense of relentless inevitability, and that was something that we talked about early on, and just tried to preserve through the process, that even when even before he arrives at the place, he's you know, fate is sort of playing its hand, if you will. You're talking about a type of movie that we don't see very much anymore, and the genre has become, you know, a distillation of kind of pop-outs or scares, or, you know, every 2.5 minutes you have to scare somebody, and we wanted to return to kind of a slow cooking approach to the narrative, and I think that those movies you mentioned, they have a real point of view. You know, there's sort of two types of storytelling, I think. For me, there's the kind of hand on your back. We're going to lead you through a darkened space, which we could use in like Rango or you know, Pirates of the Caribbean. And then there's the breadcrumbs. Like, we're going to put some breadcrumbs out, and we're going to try to get you to nibble a little bit. And that that can be more devastating, because you open the door and you kind of let us in, if that makes sense, because we're preying upon your motivation to discover things, and using enigma and more of a dream logic. And I think hopefully, you know, it's very hard to talk about this movie right after you see it, but hopefully in 3 days you will start to feel the side effects of The Cure.
Gore has a very clear vision. You show up to set and he has a poster board that shows you what shots we're getting and probably where they're going to be used when he cuts the scene together. And the shots at times are very complicated and precise. So there is a part of the performance, sometimes it was about helping that shot come to life. And it's the blueprint, you know, just like the script is the blueprint. And then I feel like within that, there was a lot of room to bring it to life, and to react organically, and to let what was happening be a surprise, you know? Like in the dentist scene, I didn't know how I was going to react when there was a drill coming at my face. And it turns out I squealed like a pig. And You know, it was very appropriate, and he never was like, "Hey, don't squeal like a pig." It was just that, or he didn't say squeal like a pig or don't squeal like a pig. That's just what was happening when there was a drill coming at my face.
Yeah, I think you have a plan for everything, so it has intention, but then you rely on an honest interpretation in the moment. I mean, that's the real, to try to get an honest performance, and that may not be improvisation, right? Because you're not changing the dialogue or the fundamental intention of the shot, but it is improvisation from you're trying to find something honest in every moment, and that's what's so great about working with Dane. I think that he understands the process that we're doing externally, the camera and boom man and everybody. We're here to kind of create a mosaic, something that we're getting pieces. But he's able to then kind of, once we understand, okay, I need to make this moment as honest as possible. It's all preparation. I mean, you have to because it's not just the composition; it's the light, and so you're scheduling your frames with scouting and taking photographs and using lenses and depth of field and everything to try to separate the foreground from the background, and saying we're going to be here at 4:30 in the afternoon to get this shot, and then we have to run over and get the reverse angle at a different time of day. Yeah, the execution is very precise. I mean, the most liberal moments are the kind of the blank page, obviously, because you're kind of conceiving, and scouting and trying to find locations that speak to you. And yeah, by the time we're doing it, we're leapfrogging pretty. It's triage, really. I'm a big fan of like the old like film noir, like mono recordings, where maybe the man's footsteps, Lee Marvin's footsteps are just a little too loud, and they're kind of in your face in Point Blank or a movie like so. You today more and more when you get into sound design, they're stacking 1,000 sound effects to make one sound. It was very important that we kind of get back to kind of no, we're gonna record Dane's crutch, for instance. We had this, there was one crutch. We put a piece of tape on it because it made that and a little squeak. And we would after shoot we would record it with the sound man specifically. We sent it back to Los Angeles. We sent it to our Foley artists in Finland. We if you can record one, it's like organic food. It's like if it's ripe and it's right off the vine, it's going to be delicious, and you don't need to do all that stuff to it. And then you just play it a little too loud. Well, The Shining is a beautiful movie. I think that there are a lot of influences. Roman Polanski's The Tenant is one of my all-time favorite movies. Don't Look Now, The Servant, Joseph Losey film. I mean, all of those movies have a sense of some other force besides the story. We very early on we talked about the sense of the inevitable, with a sense of something is at work, sort of pulling the camera down the corridor, and so it's not just the danger with an overt style is that it can become it's like wearing the wrong dress to the party. It has to constantly be in service of the story we're telling, and so we're trying to say right from the beginning, this melody, the perfume bottle's opened, and the smell has come across the Atlantic, and is kind of the sirens are calling Dane's character to this place. Everything has a kind of intention, And I think that's what you sense in Kubrick's movies. Absolutely. I mean, there's like very strict intention, and there are different times we want to. I would really admire Hal Ashby, you know, for different, you know, to almost the absence of that intention. So it depends on the process. This one, because we were trying to put the sickness in that sense of an inevitable force, it seemed appropriate.
It was, you know, it was interesting being around a bunch of old people, especially when I was around a bunch of naked old people. I can't imagine that's how I expected to spend my days, but they were all, gosh, they were all such great characters, you know, and the casting of all the patients, you know, the extras, but also Celia and everyone I got to work with every day. That was one of the fun things about this movie is I was there every single day, but it seemed like there was just a rotating door of actors I got to work with. And every day was a different challenge in working with a different person and reacting off of a different person.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Dane, you know, his character has it worse than anybody. You know, he is like that deer who won't lay down. You know, I mean, I think the rest of them, once they're sort of diagnosed with this kind of, you know, it's a form of absolution to say you're not responsible because you're not well. I think Dane's character is sort of not doesn't buy it as easily as the rest of them, and also from Mia's perspective, from Hannah's perspective, he's the first one that's different, right? So he's the contaminant. Then it's only in kind of the contaminating something pure that it flowers. So that it's an awakening. So there's like a pinprick, and that's really, I think that's what's happening as he arrives here as well.
That was definitely one of the more intense sequences to shoot. I think it took about 2 weeks to shoot it, and you know, I was underwater the whole time. I'd never acted underwater before, and so that was a challenge. But I was, you know, I was bolted in basically. I was wearing a harness, and there were metal cables that were tied to the harness that were keeping me horizontal, and I had you know, the oxygen to breathe out of my mouth, but my nose wasn't covered and my eyes weren't covered. And, you know, I remember doing takes sometimes that were like 20 minutes long. And it was exhausting. It was a really, really intense 2 weeks. I mean, every day was challenging in some way or another, but for those 2 weeks in particular, Gore really put me through it.